Guys, we are here with the third part of decoupling of the interacting loops, and in this third part we shall be doing the design of non-interacting control loops. We know we had identified some of the parameters. We had determined the value of relative gains, and therefrom we decided which output should be controlled by which manipulated variable. But even after that, we found that in case the relative gain array is something like zero point 0.5 or zero point 0.6 or zero point 0.4, it can cause lot of issues in controlling the system, as the effect of one loop happens to be on the second one. As you can see from here, you have this manipulated variable m1. The moment this m1 is changed to control y1, this m1 inadvertently acts as a kind of influencing agent, and it happens to disturb y2. So you can very well say that M1 is a kind of disturbance as far as Y2 is concerned. So this Y2 gets disturbed, and so this Y2, it gives the feedback to the controller GS2, and it changes M2 to bring Y2 back to its original point. But this M2 in a way influences the upper loop Y1. For this Y1, this M2 is acting as a kind of disturbance. So what is happening ultimately is that the upper loop is disturbing the lower loop, and the lower loop is disturbing the upper loop without any possible cause or reason as such. So what do we see over here? That we want to reduce the effect of upper loop on the lower loop, and vice or versa, and this is what we say is a kind of decoupling of the two control loops, or you can say we are going in for design of non-interacting control loops. Now let us see how is this going to happen. You see, as we had seen earlier also, that this y1, as you see over here, this y1 is nothing but the sum of m1 into h11 plus, as we can see over here, m2 over h12. So this is m1 into h11 plus m2 into h12, and similarly this y2 is also, you have a very simple trick. The trick is you replace 1 by 2 over here. This 1 1 should be replaced by 2 2 over here. This m is 1 is replaced by m2. This 1 2 is replaced by 2 and 1. This 2 is replaced by 1. So we have a very simple trick, that replace all 1's by 2's and replace all 2's by 1. So your equation number 1 will become equation number 2. Your upper loop equations will be same, you cannot should not say same, but similar to the lower loop equations. The simple difference is that 1 is replaced by 2 and 2 is replaced by 1. Friends, I may tell you in at this point itself that this design has lots and lots of mathematical manipulations. So it's better you take a piece of paper and a pen or a pencil. You can pause the video in between. You actually, with your own hand, you note down all the equations. You actually solve all the points. Maybe it's simple multiplication throughout, or it's transposing the terms, uh, whatsoever, cross multiplying, blah blah, whatsoever it is being done over here. You do it with your own hand with a piece of paper and a pencil or a pen so that you be very clear of all the mathematical steps which are being followed over here. Now, here the objective is to keep this y1 constant. When we say I want to keep this y1 constant, irrespective of the fact what is happening over here, I don't want anything like m2 to disturb y1, so I want to keep this y1 constant, and mathematically it means that I want to keep y bar equal to 0 because y bar is the change from steady state. And so, as you can see, just have a look at equation number once again. In equation number 1, if I put this y1 bar equal to 0, what will I get? If I put this is equal to 0, then in that case I will get that m1. This m1 is nothing but it's equal to, as this term is going to go on the left, it will require a negative sign. This m1 is equal to minus, as you can see, it's equal to minus h12 upon h11 multiplied by m2. Now, this is a philosophy. This is the philosophy behind decoupling, and we will see that we have known that what is the effect of M2 as its equivalent effect on M1. So if we are able to somehow anticipate this effect of M2 on M1 and we design something with this term, this is the dynamic term minus h12 over h11. So we will take this term, we will take a clue from here and we design a dynamic term, and this term over here, if the process is well known, we have designed one decoupler taking clue from this. So someone should ask, why have you taken d1 is equal to minus h12 over h11? So you can always say that because we have determined that the effect of m2, when the effect of m2 multiplied by this term happens to be its equivalent in terms of m1, that is why we have taken this d1 equal to this factor minus h12 upon h11. So this is the whole philosophy behind design of non-interacting control loops. So once you have understood this, rest most of the things are mere mathematical manipulations, as you will see. But even those mathematical manipulations, they are, friends, not given in the book, and it's often difficult when you see in book it's written that so solving this equation we get this result. You don't know how to solve the equations, so we will be solving these equations by steps one by one, as we do in standard 7th or 8th kind of stuff in algebra. Now, as you know now, the philosophy that whatsoever was m1 over here, we want that this output of gc2, which is from the neighboring loop, it's getting multiplied by d1, and we have seen the value of d1, and that d1 is going to be added to the upper loop, the effect of lower loop, which was happening through the process, through interaction. Along with it, because we cannot avoid this has to happen, it has to happen, but along with it we have an additional term which we add over here in terms of d1. It is getting added to m1, and this d1 will effectively counter the effect of this process interaction. The way the lower loop was trying to disturb the upper loop, we have in a way measured this disturbance, and as we used to do it in feed forward control, we have designed this block D1 to mitigate, or you can say to cancel the effect, as it was supposed to happen through process and it's supposed to cancel it. Let us see whether it is able to cancel it out or not. So this D1 is called decoupler because it's trying to decouple the effect of lower on the upper one. Similarly, we have another decoupler that is going to be used as output of GC1, it is designed as D2 in the similar manner which we had D1. So we had seen that this D1 was nothing but minus H12 upon H11, and I had given you a very simple trick that in case you want to replace this 1 by 2, that is you want to design D2, then in that case this H12 will become H21 and this H11 will become H22. So D2, once D1 is known, D2 is simply obtained by replacing 1 with 2 and 2 with 1. Now let us see. Under this situation, what is M1? If we see what is M1 under this situation, this M1 is nothing but the final manipulated variable which is going to the process. This is nothing but sum of, as we having a sum of the first term. The first term is the error. What is error over here? You have y1 minus ysp. This is the error multiplied by gc1. So this is the output coming from here. Plus, along with it, you have similarly another error, which is y2 minus y2sp, or you can say just the opposite, y2sp minus y2. This is the error over here. This error is getting multiplied by gc2, and this error is getting output from the controller getting multiplied by gc2. It's getting multiplied by d1 also, and over here we have this term. So these two terms are getting added, and after getting these two terms added over here, we have the final m1 available over here. We call this m1 represented by this equation. We call this as equation number 3. We have seen this equation number 3, and now we will play with this equation number 3 little bit here and there. How? Let us see. The way we have m1, similarly replacing 1 by 2 and replacing 2 by 1, we will have a similar equation for m2 without going through the whole process, without doing the whole exercise again. So we don't believe in reinventing the wheel. So this is the way we go in for equation number 4. Now, as we manipulate this equation number 4, what we do is, as you can see, it's very simple. I have simply replaced this m2 goes on the right side of the equal to, and this equation, it goes on the left hand side. And similarly what we get over here is that I get the value of y2 is p minus y2. So what I have done is that this term, this entire term, I have shifted on the other side of the equal to, and I get this equation of y2sp minus y2 into gc2. The objective is that this value of y2sp minus y2 into gc2, this I will be putting it over here, and this is my intention. That is why I have calculated this value of y2sp minus y2 into gc2, and substituting this value from equation number 5 into equation number 3, I get the value of m1 as given in the next equation. And this equation of m1, as we see over here, from here, this equation m1, as we see, I'm going to make use of as given by in equation number 1. That's why I'm recalling equation number 1. And as we go in for, we have to substitute the value of m2. We have to substitute the value of m2 from equation number 1 in equation number 8. So over here we have equation number 1. This equation number 1 is given by this. I calculate the value of m1, and this value of m1 I put it over here. So what is this value of m1? As I put it over here, what you will get is simply given by equation number 9. So friends, in case you are having some issues, you're not able to follow what I'm going to say over here, you can pause the video, you can stop the video, you can go on manipulating the things on the piece of paper and a pencil, as you will be able to understand these equations in a better manner. So once this value of m1 is substituted over here, as you can see that I have two m1s coming over here. One m1 which was obtained from here, and this equation m1 I'm putting in over here, and what I will get over here is I am now having two m1s over here. I'm having one m1 over here. I'm having one mm over here, and now I have the values of d2 and d1 also in the same equation, because you see I had substituted the value of m2. Earlier equation number 8 had m2 and m1, but after replacing the value of m2, what I'm getting is that in equation number 9 I do not have m2, I have only m1 over here and m1 over here. Now here comes the best part, wherein I have the values of d2 and d1, and we know what are the values of d2 and d1. These values of d2 and d1 I'll be putting in equation number 9, and let us see what happens thereafter. Equation number 9, this is the value of d1 and d2. I put the value of d1 and d2 in equation number 9. I get this equation, and in this equation I have simply substituted the value of d1 and d2. So this value of d1 and this value of d2 were replaced by this fraction and this fraction over here and over here, and I'm now going to simply do manipulations, like I'm going to open the brackets. The moment I open the brackets, I rearrange the terms, I will get, you see, this m1 over here, this m1 over here already has h11 divided by h12 with the negative sign. So the moment I open the bracket, this h11 will get cancelled by this h11, this h12 will get cancelled by this h12, and this negative sign will again get multiplied by this negative sign, so this will become positive sign, and I'll be left with only m1. I'll be left with only m1, and this only m1 over here is equal to this only m1 over here, so this m1 over here will get cancelled by only m1 over here, and we rearrange the terms, you will get this equation. So I hope you have understood this step. So once we get this equation, I'm going to open the brackets further. So you have y1 into sp minus y1. So once I open these brackets over here, similarly I open the brackets over here, and I am going to rearrange the terms. You will get this equation as equation number 10 over here, and here again I manipulate, I do some transpositions in such a manner, step by step, as we will see in the next slide. This is equation number 10, and in this equation number 10 I'm going to do further simple manipulations. I have rearranged the terms. I have put all y1 terms on one side. I have put all y1 sp terms on the other side. I have taken this y1 common on one side. I have taken y1 sp on the common side, on the other side of the equal to sign. Then I multiply throughout by h11, because I can see a lot of h11 in the denominator over here. So I do this manipulation. I see there are some negative signs, so I multiply everything by -1, and finally what I get is this equation, and this equation has y1 on one side, something in the bracket, y1 sp on the other side, and something in bracket, and this is again rearranged in this term. So friends, this equation is very important. As you can say, you will see over here that we have only y1 in terms of y1 sp. There is no m1, there is no m2, and there is no gc2 also. There is no gc2 also. It means that if I happen to retune the value of gc2, it's not going to affect the value of gc1 or the value of v1. So this is very important equation. Let's have a look at this equation once again. Equation once again, and from this equation we get the value of y1, and this y1 is equal to, as you can see, gc1 into brackets h11 minus h12 h21 by h22, the whole thing divided by 1 plus gc1 in brackets h11 minus h12 h21 slash h22, entire fraction multiplied by y and sp. This is something so important. As you can see that y1 is totally and totally dependent on the value given by gc1. It's dependent on the set point given to y1. It has nowhere m2, it has nowhere gc2. If I retune gc2, gc1 will not get affected, y1 will not get affected. All the things are just written in such a manner that they can be diagrammatically represented as, you can see, the upper loop. We simply have the upper loop. The lower loop thing is totally not visible anywhere. So it means that the upper loop is now totally independent of the lower loop. And let's see what happens to the lower loop. This is the equation for y1. I want to go in for the equation of y2. Again, we apply the same concept of replacing 1 by 2 and 2 by 1, and so we will get y2 given by this term. And similarly, in case of y2, there is no m1, there is no gc1, there is nothing like y1. In the lower loop there is nothing containing which is affected by the upper loop. So it means that the lower loop is independent of the upper loop. We had seen earlier that the upper loop was independent of lower loop, and now we have seen that by adding d1 and d2, by adding the decouplers with appropriate values, we have been finally able to design a kind of non-interacting control loops. These D1 and D2s are called decouplers. They are also called cross couplers, or you can call them as, they are cross interacting loops as such. So these are the cross controllers. Why they are called cross controllers? Because they now have eliminated the effect of interaction between the two interacting control loops. That's why they are called cross controllers. So as we see over here, the design of non-interacting control loops has finally led us to two loops which were earlier interacting, but now they have stopped interacting. Now they are totally decoupled. We have designed cross controllers for them. We have designed decouplers for them, and that is why we have come to this final situation. But we have to consider few things before we say that okay, we are over with the design of cross controllers or decouplers. The first thing is that the two loops are totally decoupled. This is what I have been telling you again and again. But along with it, we have to see a few points more. If we want perfect decoupling, then we have to have perfect models of entire process. Each block should be perfectly modeled. That is the value of h11, h12, h21, h22. All these values must be known absolutely perfectly. And in case we do not know these things properly, the decoupling will also not be total. You will have partial decoupling, but you will not have total decoupling. Total decoupling means the relative gain becomes 1. Partial decoupling means the relative gain is zero point 0.8 or 0.85. Okay, it has improved from 0.6, it has become 0.85, but it is still not equal to 1. The issue is not only about knowing these processes, but we have to go a bit further. And here we see that most of the processes are nonlinear, most of the processes are non-stationary. It means that as the operating uh, point changes, the dynamics of the system change, the model of the system changes. With respect to time also, with the passage of time also, the model of the system changes. So it means that all these h11 and h21 and h12, these things are changing with respect to time and with respect to the operating point. So in that case, even the decouplers have to adapt themselves accordingly. Decouplers have to change themselves as the values of h11 and h22. So decouplers are no longer static decouplers. They are not that okay, once we have designed it, once we have modeled for it, and we are over it for the lifetime. So as these values change, these values of decouplers also change. So you can say that decouplers are also dynamic in nature, or they have to adapt themselves. That is why we say they are kind of adaptive decouplers. And these decouplers are essentially, as I told you earlier, they are kind of feed forward control elements. They are basically feed forward control elements, because what happens in case of feed forward, we have disturbance, so we measure the disturbance, and we take a proactive preemptive method. You can say we have an kind of device which is in the form of feed forward controller, which measures the disturbance and it mitigates the effect of disturbance before its effect is felt on the output. So here, what is the disturbance? For the upper loop, lower loop manipulated variable M2 is disturbance. So exactly we do the same thing. We measure this M2 and we measure this equivalent disturbance, that is the change in M2 is disturbance. The change in manipulated variable for the lower loop is a kind of disturbance for the upper loop, and vice versa. So designing a decoupler is nothing but taking a kind of feed forward action to mitigate the effect of M2 on M1. So ultimately we conclude that decouplers are nothing but a kind of feed forward controllers, and just as in case of feed forward controllers, we have issues with the feed forward controllers, like we have to have adaptive kind of feed forward controllers, we have to have feed forward controllers which are to be physically reliable. So here we will discuss the physical reliability of decouplers, and same physical reliability of decouplers which we are going to discuss over here in this session will be applicable when we go in for, or when we had discussed the issue of feed forward controllers. Just the way some of the decouplers are not physically realizable, in the same manner some of the feed forward control elements are also not physically realizable. Let us see what is the meaning of physical realizability. Physically unrealizable decouplers, and this we will see with the help of an example, which happens to be a very simple example. Let us take two systems which are coupled. We have y1 which is affected by m1 and m2, we have y2 which is affected by m1 and m2 once again. And as we can see, this one has input of 1 and output of 1. So this one is called H11. This one has input of 2 and output of 1. This will be called H12. This one will be called H21 because the output is 2 and input is 1. And this block will be called H22 because the input is 2 and output is also 2. So as we can see over here, this is one system, and for these we design decouplers as we had just seen by putting D1 equal to minus H12 over H11 and D2 is equal to minus H21 over H22. For what we get for D2, it's not an issue for D2 because D2 happens to be this equation into e the power minus 1 s delay of 1. That's perfectly okay, but we have issue with d1. D1 requires h12 divided by h11, and h12 as you can see over here, this is h12. It has the delay of e the power minus 0.5 s, but H11 somehow has a bigger delay of minus 1.5. So when this e to the power minus 1.5 goes in denominator of e to the power minus 0.5, what we get is e to the power plus 1.0, and this e to the power plus 1.0 results in a delay which is not delay, but it is rather giving me, it's required that it has to have some future value. This negative delay means future. We cannot anticipate the things which are going to happen, and this is going to lead to an issue. This negative value is no issue. We have some point, we take the delay value, we take the past value after delay of 1 second, but this requires the value which is likely to be there in future, so that is going to give us lots of trouble. So this D1 as such is not physically realizable. So friends, we have seen that the coupler D1 is physically unrealizable because it has a future term of e to the power plus 1.0 s, and this future value of M2 is not available to us. We are not going to predict this value as such over here. So this kind of decoupler is unrealizable. So all decoupling is not possible because of number of issues. First issue is that the process is not known to us. Second issue is that the process may be changing all the time. We have to go in for some kind of adaptive things. And third reason, and the main reason for any of the decoupler which is not physically unrealizable, you can say physically realizable or it's physically unrealizable, simply because of the fact that it requires the future value of M2, that is the disturbance, the one which has not occurred, and we want to anticipate what will be the disturbance, so that's something which we cannot go in for. That's why we may not be able to design decouplers for every kind of process system. So with this we come to an end to this kind of interacting systems we have. In this way we shall try to decouple the interacting loops and make the things a bit easier and more comfortable for the control engineers to control the coupled interacting loops. Hope you have understood all this, and you have gone through all these mathematical manipulations in a manner, physically striking out the things and multiplying and transposing the terms here and there as I have been instructing from time to time. In case you have any queries or you want to share something, we will be interacting through Zoom sessions or through WhatsApp or through any other means. You can call me, and I thank you for being with me once again. I hope you have enjoyed this session again, and I wish you a very safe stay. Bye bye.